Hi, so I got asked for this all the time. We're going to do a little tutorial to show you how to put an invisible zip. So we're pretending this is the back of a dress. These are the arm sides at the side. This is our centre back seam. And what I've done is I've pressed back the seam allowance along the centre back seam, and you would normally finish that raw edge in some way before you start with an overlocker or an overcasting stitch, whatever you prefer. And then we're going to take our invisible zip. So invisible zips are a little bit different to a regular zip. You don't see the teeth on the front, they're on the back. You just see the zipper pull on the front. So you're going to lay your invisible zip right sides up, and you're going to lay the dress on top of it, and you're going to line the seam line up with the top stopper on the zip, so that you've got seam allowance to put a facing on, or in some other way finish your neckline. Then you just lay the two back bodice pieces over the zip, so that it will look like what you want it to look like when it's finished. Basically, we work backwards from the kind of the finished look that you want. Take one side away, and then, as I say, making sure that zipper pull is lined up with the seam line at the top of your dress, you're going to undo the left hand side of the zip, making sure you hold the right side of the zipper tape to the bodice, and then you just unfold the seam allowance, holding the zipper tape with it, and that is the position that you want to sew the zip onto your fabric. So you're then going to take a pin, and then you can continue to pin down, aligning the teeth with the fold that you pressed back for your seam line. And then you're going to need an invisible zipper foot. It has a hole here in the middle, and then you can see two channels like tunnels that run underneath the foot. Those are for your teeth to go through. And then the stitching goes down in the middle. So you're going to put the invisible zip foot on your machine, and then take your zip with your bodice attached, and you bring in underneath the foot, and you have to think about where you're going to be stitching. So you want to stitch on the left hand side here, so on the side of the zipper tape, and so your teeth are going to be going into the right hand tunnel. Yeah, you want to sew just on the side, and you can see as you roll the teeth up, it means you can get closer toward them, so that your invisible zip will end up being more invisible. So you have to stand the teeth upwards. I always describe it to my students, I don't know why, as like soldiers. The soldiers have to stand to attention as they go through the tunnel. Don't ask me why, but it works. So your job is to just sew down now the zip, do a little reverse at the start, and then keeping the teeth in line with the seam that you folded back, you're going to stand the teeth up as they go through the tunnel. Yeah, so you can use pins all the way down here, or you can use double-sided sewing tape, whichever you prefer. I just tend to hold on to it and make it do what I want it to. Then I've put a mark here that I want to finish at. I'm going to do a little reverse and then trim off. So that's what it looks like when it's finished. Then you can just flip the zip back over again like that and do it up. Yeah. Then take the other side where you folded the seam allowance back and lay it onto the other side of the zipper tape. And then we go again up at the top here. You're going to align the two fabrics so they're the same height. Hold on to the left side now, and then undo the zip. And then again peel back the tape and the seam allowance. And then again pop a pin in there to stop that from shifting. And then again you can pin all the way down or tape all the way down, whichever you prefer. But then you're going to go back to the machine, and this time your teeth, your soldiers, are going to go into the other side of the tunnel. So you're going to roll them away to the left, bring them in underneath the tunnel. And this is why an invisible zipper foot is really so helpful when you're sewing an invisible zipper, because it allows you to get so close to the teeth. You can sew an invisible zip in without an invisible zip foot, but it's not going to be invisible. You will be able to see the zip when you're finished. So it really is worthwhile making the investment to get an invisible zipper foot if you want to sew these kinds of zips. So again, all the way down, just keeping the teeth upright, up to your marker, and then stop, and then a reverse, just to make that nice and strong at the end of the zip, and then trim off. There we go. So it's a little bit of a mess when you finish, but don't panic. You are okay. You've just got to get the zipper pull facing upwards and flip the sides around so the zip will go up. There we go, and that's what it looks like when it's done. You can't see the zip. It is invisible. However, we do need to finish the bottom here. So this would be the bottom of your dress, your skirt pieces, for example. You're going to need a narrow zipper foot for this. It really does give you the best finish, and you'll see why in a second. So I've attached this to my machine, but what you can see is the needle position right in the middle is going to hit the zipper foot. So you need to move your needle position. So I've just swung mine over to the right, so it's going to go into the little hole there on the right hand side of the foot. Then I'm going to take my bodice, flip it so the skirt pieces are up at the top. Pull those two seam allowances together, and again you can pin down here if you want to, but you're going to then sew down the crease of your seam allowance toward the bottom of your zip. So you're sewing from the bottom of your skirt up toward the base of your zip. When you get to where the zipper tape is, you need to peel the zipper tape out of the way, and then you're going to get as close as you can to that stitching at the bottom of your zip. Oh, lost it. Get hold of it again. There we go. So this is why you can see the narrow zipper foot is really helpful, because it allows you to get as close as you possibly can to your previous bit of stitching. Yeah. Then a little reverse. Again, make this nice and strong. So do a couple of stitches forward, a couple of reverses. There we go. And then you can trim off. And then there we go. So that's your invisible zip finished using your invisible zip foot and your narrow zip foot. There we go. See you soon. Bye.